Welcome to the Psychic Pinup Podcast, the anything and everything spiritual podcast where we dive into hot topics, readings, viewer questions, and more. Thank you for tuning in. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive right into it.
Welcome to another episode of the Anything and Everything Spiritual Podcast. My name is Linda, also known as the Psychic Pinup, and I'm very excited to be with you today. This is part 2 of my listener questions I have been receiving in relation to the last couple of podcast episodes I have put up for you all to listen to. This one is questions I have received in relation to the podcast called Your Intuition Is Not Crazy. Remember that one? And I've got some interesting ones here. I did get a lot of questions for this one, and many of them were basically double ups. I have filtered through these and I've picked out the ones that I think are a little bit juicy. The first one is, how do I know if it's my intuition speaking or just my fear and anxiety? Which I find very interesting. I always say to people, go with your gut. What's your gut telling you? I notice this when I say to people who sit in front of me, particularly when I'm reading, and I'll say to them, I don't want you to think. I just want you to give me the first thing that you're feeling straight away, without thinking. And you can see, they're like a deer in headlights. They're like, huh? And you can see the cogs are turning. They're thinking. They're thinking what they should be saying. They're analysing before they give me the answer, which I did not want them to do. I said, just go with the first thing. That's your intuition. So people are asking me, how do you know if it's my intuition speaking or my fear and anxiety? Okay? If you have to think about it, that's you. That's your ego. Don't think. It's the first thing, first feeling you've got. Granted, I'm trained to go with my first feelings, everything that pops into me, because I'm trained. I've trained myself for this. But a lot of people haven't. So they automatically get into their heads, their ego. Your ego is there to protect you. So that is the fear that is stepping into place here. The fear. Failure. What if I do this? What if it doesn't work? Oh my goodness, what will that look like? Fear. Does that make sense? Let's break that down again. How do I know if it's my intuition speaking or just my fear and anxiety? In a nutshell, if you overthink it, if you keep thinking without acting, without going with that feeling, that is your fear, that is your anxiety, that is your ego that is kicking in. Next question I've got. Have you ever followed your intuition even when it didn't make sense? And what happened? Now, I chose this question because I have the best example ever, and I have used this example in many of my classes that I have taught. I've also used this example when I have read for people about following your intuition. If you are not familiar with me, my life, I had a child very late in life. I was nearly 47 when I gave birth to her. She's my only child. Now, I was I'll just break this down very, very quickly because there's a whole lead up to this whole thing, but I'll just break it down for you. I was about 7 months pregnant. I was sitting in front of my computer finishing up some work for a client. This is pre-psychic mediumship days. I was having my lunch. I was getting this urge that I needed to be at the hospital, which is absolutely ridiculous because I'd only been at the hospital the week before with my monthly checkup and everything was on track. I was sitting there. I could not get rid of this niggling feeling, the hospital, the hospital, the hospital, the hospital. And I thought, oh, okay, all right. Well, I finished my sandwich and I got in the car and I drove to the hospital. Now, I'd only just bought a new car also, and I had to change the registration over, which I planned on doing after I came out of the hospital, after my checkup, or the reason why I needed to be in there. So I had cash in my bag too to change my rego over. I rocked up to the hospital and they asked me, why are you here? And I'm like, I don't know. Just don't feel right. So they hooked me up to the machines. Basically, within 1 hour, my child was born by emergency cesarean. Her heart rate was dropping and she had to come out very, very quickly, put it that way. So nobody knew I was in the hospital. Nobody knew where I was. I still had the clothes on my back. I had my bag with all my cash in there to go and register my car after it. And basically I had an anaesthetist on one side of me, one standing on one side, the obstetrician on the other. As they are wheeling me down to the theatre, I'm signing my life away with consent forms. That's how quick all of that happened. That obstetrician came to see me the next day and she said to me, how did you know? And I said, I don't know, I just had this feeling. And she said, if you had have waited another couple of hours, you would have had a stillborn baby. Now, that is a classic example of following your intuition. And it did not make sense to me at the time, but I listened to it. And I thank the universe and my team that I listened to this. They were urging me to go to the hospital because my little one was on her way out. And I thank that every single day. My next question here is, what's a daily practice you recommend for strengthening intuition? Okay. Good question. There's so many different exercises you can do, you can practice. But I'm going to take you back, or I would like to take you back to when I first started developing, and I didn't have the luxury of going to development classes. I did later on, but at the time they're very hard to find. So I found myself watching a lot of YouTube channels and reading books and educating myself that way. But I did go one step further and I bought myself an exercise book, a nice exercise book. I called it my journal. Every day before I opened my eyes, I got into the habit of replaying my dream in my head before I opened my eyes to remember my dream. I would get up, make myself a cup of coffee, sit there and write that dream out in as much detail as I could remember. I've realised later on, a few years down the track, that I was actually training myself clairvoyantly. Every day I used to also draw myself a card out of an oracle deck or a tarot deck, just one card, and I would not read the meaning of it out of the book. I would look at the picture, look at the image, and just feel what I thought the message was today from my team. I would write that down. This is all in this journal. So I used to have the dream, then I had the message from my team for the day. I went one step further. I used to carry that journal around with me in my handbag everywhere. Random thoughts I used to get, I used to write down in my journal. Signs I used to get, write down in my journal. Anything random, anything, write down in my journal. And over time, it became more natural for me. I did not have to write it down. However, it did train me to be able to pick up the messages that I was receiving from the universe and to teach me to listen to my intuition. So maybe you may like to follow the same path as what I did. I'm not saying it's the right way or the wrong way or my way or the highway, but it worked for me, and I always encourage people to find what works best for you. Now the next question is it possible to overthink intuition and block it? Absolutely, it is possible to overthink. This, for me, also is very similar to the first question that I read out. How do I know if it's my intuition speaking or just my fear and anxiety? Same thing. Overthinking, and then you're blocking it. It's your ego that is blocking the intuition because it's too scared, if that makes sense. Okay, is it possible to overthink intuition and block it? Yes, it is. That's your ego that is blocking that information. The last question I have here is, can intuition sometimes lead us to uncomfortable truths we're not ready for? All the time. All the time. I think I need to use an example here when I read for people. Unfortunately, there are times where I have to be the bearer of bad news. What I'm getting at here, does our intuition lead us to uncomfortable truths? I'm 100% convinced that when I deliver these not so nice messages, people already know this. My sitter already has the inkling. My sitter already feels the answer I'm going to give them. They will ask me a specific question, and I know that they already know that feeling. I know it. Unfortunately, I'm the one that has to deliver it. I'm just reinforcing what their intuition already knows, if that makes sense. I want you to think back when you go and have a reading with a psychic and a medium, and you ask them a particular question with the hope that they will give you what you are wanting or what they are wanting to hear. But deep down they know what the answer already is. And a good psychic should deliver that message and stay true to the information. I wouldn't necessarily say it's uncomfortable truths. It's more like facing truths. I hate delivering those sort of messages, but I do come from a place of love, and I want to be able to help my sitters to be able to take the information that I give them and do with it what they feel is best at the time. Also, it's all about learning to grow as a human. We are here having a human experience. We are spirit in a human body having this experience here, and this is all part and parcel of what we call uncomfortable truths, I guess. I wouldn't necessarily say it's leading us to uncomfortable truths. I think it's there to help us face and help us grow. So I hope that makes sense for you. And that leads me to the end of these questions for that podcast episode called Your Intuition is Not Crazy, but they were my favorite ones that I went through. I thought that you would all get something out of that just very, very quickly. So thank you for joining me on this very short podcast. I will be back with another episode, part 3 of more listener questions for the business spiritual side. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.
You have been listening to Linda, the Psychic Pinup. Linda is a psychic medium based on the New South Wales south coast of Australia. You can connect with her via her website, thepsychicpinup.com.au, or join her on her weekly live feeds on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all under the same name, The Psychic Pinup. Thanks for listening.